So with week 2, Mark Varitimos will be going through the 6 foundations of a robust immune system. And I think it's a beautiful flow on from what Marie Louise was talking about last week with breath, and just enabling us in providing us the tools to get centered and grounded really quickly. And each week we're going to build on those skills. So this week, focusing on immunity, I think it's a topical issue given everything going on in the world. People are becoming a little bit more conscious of their immune system, but also their immune systems are being tested because of all the extra external stresses and whatnot. But I think with all these lockdowns that are happening, yes, it's creating pressure for people. But I think if you sort of do a bit of a flip switch on that and flip it, it's a really good opportunity for us to go inside, both physically and literally, as well as from an emotional, spiritual wellness perspective. We've got this really amazing opportunity right now to look at what's happening on the inside of us, from our growth, our mental, our physical, all the rest of that, and really do a check and do an audit and go, what can I do differently that is going to set me up to be a stronger, happier, healthier human? So with that, Mark, I'd like you to take over, and I'm really excited about this session. Same as last week, if you have any questions, type it in, but Mark's also going to be stopping intermittently and inviting people to put their hand up and ask some questions. So yeah, over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Letitia. And I'm really excited to present this. It's a real topical thing at the moment. So what we've seen, a lot of people have got a new awareness around the immune system, and what we've seen with the pandemic is that generally people that have a strong immune system will fare a lot better from viral infections. So today is just going to be like some really practical, easy to implement tips. It might be a little bit content heavy. So for anyone who stays the duration, what I'd love to actually do at the end is just be like, hey, look, what's 1 or 2 things that you either learned or that you either want to implement? Because there might be quite a bit of stuff here. There might be quite a bit of stuff you already do. And even if you just learned something or if something's been reiterated, I'd love to hear about it at the end. So we're going to go through 6 key principles or foundations of things you can do to help improve your immune system. Very, very easy to implement. You're more than welcome to throw questions at me. You're more than welcome to say, hey, Mark, I've got this, what should I do for that? My son's got this, what can I do for that? I love random questions. Okay. So if I don't know the answer, I don't know the answer to everything. So if I don't know the answer, I'll just let you know. Okay. So I will attempt to share this screen with my Zoom competency. Okay. So we're building a robust immune system. And we're going to do it. It's going to be like a holistic approach. So I'm not going for any sort of shotgun approach here. It's around implementing little things and behavioral change, essentially. Okay. I've got a compliance thing there in case we distribute this on the Whole Grow platform. Okay. So the main foundations we're going to go through is sleep, hydration, nutrition, breathing, which Marie touched on last week, so I actually won't touch on it that much. Movement and thinking. Okay. So we'll come across. Now, the first one would be sleep. So what are the benefits of sleep when it comes to the immune system? So while you're sleeping, there's certain components of your immune system that actually rev up and help you fight off infections. And studies have actually shown that you recover a lot quicker from viral infections when you have a few good nights sleep. So really can rev up. But at the same time, sleep in general helps you consolidate your learning and your memory. And it also does that for your immune system. So you actually build a stronger immune memory on how to fight off things. Certain pathogens, how to react and recognize certain pathogens like a fungi, parasite, virus, etc. Okay. So if you start to become sleep deprived, that can cause a stress on your body in general. You can start pumping more stress hormones in general. And when you're pumping stress hormones, the main one specifically measured is cortisol, that can chronically, if that's continuing to happen, can suppress your immune system over time. So that's the first 3 points covered. The fourth point is around, there's been a number of studies to show that your immune response soon after vaccination is actually quite a bit stronger if you get some good night's sleep. So there was a study done back in 2002 where they administered a flu vaccine into people. And then they had a group of people that averaged 4 hours sleep per night for 6 nights. Then they had a group of people that averaged 7 hours sleep per night for 6 nights. And the people that averaged 7 hours sleep had a 50% stronger immune response after 1 week. So it can make a massive difference. And I thought I'd mention how it can really be beneficial if you choose to get the vaccination. And obviously vaccinations are quite topical at the moment. Now, so my recommendations for sleep is adults generally 7 to 9 hours per night. If it's consistently more than 9, then I would start to think, maybe there's some fatigue there. We might need to go in for a bit deeper investigation. And if it's consistently less than 7 at the same time, we have to go into, okay, why might that be the case? And I'll go through that on the next slide, actually. For anyone who's got any kids, teenagers, ideally 8 to 10 hours per night, and then it just gets more and more kind of as you get younger. Now, I like to talk about sleep in line with the circadian rhythms of the planet. So that's generally, everyone's a little bit different. Everyone's got a different style, but generally going to bed around about 10 p.m. and waking up about 6 a.m. That said, there's something called different chronotypes, which different chronotypes, which there's like an early bird. There's like a where they sort of go to bed early and wake up early. Then there's like the night owl. They kind of go to bed late, wake up late. But I recommend between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. But really, it can swing individually between, anywhere between 8:30 to kind of 11 p.m. at night. But as long as you're kind of getting that 7 hours, that's a really good start. Okay, so with each section, I'm actually going to go through the benefits, the recommendations, the challenges, and then tips. So that's the benefits and recommendations on this slide. And now I'll go through the challenges and tips on the next slide. So the big one that I see affecting people's sleep is actually stress hormones. So if you're pumping a lot of stress hormones, the main one I said before is cortisol. Cortisol has an inverse relationship with a sleep regulation hormone called melatonin. So if you're pumping loads of cortisol, your melatonin will be suppressed. And so it's hard to get a good night's sleep if you're pumping high stress. And I'm sure we've all kind of experienced that. Now, from an ancestral point of view, that kind of makes sense. If you're really highly stressed, you probably wouldn't fall asleep. So for example, if it was late at night and you could only find a patch of grass next to all these lions, you probably wouldn't have done it, right? You'd probably go, I'd just like to stay awake right now and I'll just keep punching through. So the stress levels can really affect your sleep and even the quality of your sleep. So that's one of the main challenges. Another challenge that I find with people is boundaries, which is a really interesting one. I see this in parents where, they really give a lot of themselves for their kids. And I see this especially, even when I think it's personally not necessary. So an example would be, parents helping kids with their homework like every single night and then sacrificing their sleep. So they've got to wake up early to make lunches and all these kind of things. So sleep can be a bit of a boundaries thing of what you say yes to and what you say no to. And there's always got to be some compromise, but it's just about really having to protect that sometimes. And then the third thing is maintaining stable blood sugar levels. So What does that mean? So when you eat food, it converts to sugar and gives you energy around your body. Okay. Now, if that's going all over the place, and we'll talk about that in the nutrition section, if that's going on all over the place with the regular meals, like, skipping loads of different meals and then maybe having a high carbs and then skipping more meals, your blood sugar level will go up, which is okay. And then it will crash. And when it crashes, it stimulates the release of a stress hormone called cortisol, and then that wakes you up. So many times I've actually helped people get a better night's sleep by implementing regular meals that's suited to their individual constitution. So everyone's quite a bit different with the nutrition side. Some tips to improve sleep, and these are never, I never make too many friends with this first one, would be around caffeine intake. So just being really mindful of that. Caffeine has a half-life of about 4 to 6 hours. So what does that mean? So if you have a shot of coffee, and let's just say that's 100 milligrams of caffeine, it takes 4 to 6 hours for half of that to be detoxed out. So 100 mils, 4 to 6 hours, let's just call it 5 hours to keep it simple. So in 5 hours later, you've still got 50 milligrams pumping around your system. And then another 5 hours later, you got 25. So that's how it kind of works when we talk about half-life. So ideally, you don't want to have too much stimulants, really anytime after 2 or 3 p.m. in my view. You want to start to kind of reduce those down a little bit. The other things that can really help is a term called bedroom hygiene. So it's not necessarily, make sure your bed's all clean, although that would be nice. It's also around reducing exposure to like the electronics in the bedroom, and also really dimming lights or ideally almost a black room. So the electronic exposure has been shown to stimulate stress hormones. And at the same time, any light, so light in the eyes, even studies have shown light, even touching the skin, can stimulate a wake-up response. So some people are more sensitive to that than others, I've actually found. I know I'm personally sensitive to light. Other people may be a little bit less so. Then the last one is you could potentially use sleep aids. So essential oils are excellent. I personally love lavender oil. Maybe about 1 in 20 people don't really tolerate it very well. So there's other ones like a chamomile oil. And the classic supplementation would be a magnesium supplement can help relax the muscles. And I know of a really good brand if anyone wants to know one. So that's the sleep. That's the first one. Does anyone have any questions around that, or have problems sleeping, or even just some general random thoughts or input? No, all pretty good. All pretty crystal clear.
I have a child sleeping with me at night, so that.
You have a child sleeping with you?
Yeah,
Yes.
me too.
And how old's your child?
Oh, she's 7 now. Yeah, but she's been like that from a very young age. I've tried a lot of things to get her into her own room, but it's been difficult.
Yeah, it's challenging, and it is at 7 it's starting to go into that boundaries, that second point there, because it's I see it a lot. And it's hard for me to have empathy. I actually don't have children at this point, so maybe it's hard for me to fully understand. But I see it also with homework, especially as well, where parents want to have that almost a bit of a control and want the child to keep loving them, and they'll sit there helping them with their homework. I've seen that a fair bit. So yeah, it's something that you have to look to manage, Diana. That's all I can suggest. Yeah. And yourself, Letitia, as well, is that what you said?
Yeah, so we co-slept up until he was 8 or 9 months. Then he was sleeping in his bed up until probably a couple of months ago, and now he's full-time in my bed, won't even attempt to go to sleep in his own bed. He's just with me from the get-go. So I just go to bed when he goes to bed now.
Yeah.
But
okay.
it's waking me up a lot. Like if he's last night in particular, he was very restless. So, copping a hand in the mouth, and he wakes up and checks that I'm still there as well, in which he wakes me up during that process too. So yeah, it's one of those fine lines between providing them the nurturing support that he's obviously decided he needs for whatever reason right now with me, and being there for them, and then wanting to sleep under the bed so you don't get sleep woken up every hour. So yeah, it's a hard one.
It's a tricky one. Yeah, and it's something to, I hope, even just talking about it is big. Maybe yourself and Diana can be a little bit more mindful of it and think of some management strategies around it. But it's a big one around boundaries. Even I've seen it with people doing shift work where it's really not necessary to do shift work, like those kind of things. So I've worked with people that love their shift work, like a nurse or a police officer or something like that. But some people will do it because they think that's all they deserve, and it's not the case. So yeah, okay, cool. So something around boundaries there was probably the main takeaway, and the fact that sleep is just excellent for the immune system. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so number 2 is around hydration. So depending on what you read or how you measure it, really, our bodies are made up of around about 75% water, and there's around about 6 billion biochemical reactions in our body every second, and they're all dependent on water. So it's vitally, vitally important. Now, what happens, like, how does that sort of really work for the immune system? Well, it helps flush out foreign invaders. It really helps flush out, viruses and toxins and bacteria and parasites and all other kind of waste material, like environmental, for example. It's also integral in the production of lymph. So what is that? So lymph is it's the liquid in our lymphatic system, which is part of our immune system. And so lymph contains white blood cells and other immune cells, which help us fight off recognize and react to different foreign invaders. So we need adequate levels of hydration to produce adequate levels of lymph, which is integral in our immune system. Finally, it's really important for our digestion and our detoxification. So, for example, if hydration is really low, that can lead to constipation. And now all of a sudden you've got this buildup of toxins and things that need to be detoxified out, which just can't do it. So water can really help with that. So what are my recommendations? Well, I use a reference from the book, The Body's Many Cries for Water by Dr. Batman Jarlich. And the reference he uses in there is 0.033 times your body weight. So if you're 100 kilograms, that's 3.3 liters per day. Now, that might adjust a little bit between summer and winter. And also, it should be theoretically additional if you're exercising. On the next slide, I'll talk about ways you can monitor whether you're dehydrated or not. So 0.033 times body weight is a really good metric to use. Now, the challenges around hydration, monitoring consumption for people can be quite challenging. So, you can just measure out the cups, you can have your own bottle, or you can have like little triggers throughout the day. Every time I do this, or 20 minutes before each meal, I'll have a big glass of water, or when I wake up, I'll have 2 glasses of water, those kind of things. So you might have to start thinking about triggers are really good. Then we've got the quality. So our water has chlorine put in it. I think that's quite smart. It's a disinfectant, so it kills off bacteria and viruses in our water. Now, the thing is, our body's made up of trillions of bacteria and viruses, many beneficial. So the chlorine can actually kill that off and throw off our balance a little bit. So ideally, you'd like to consider a filter that at least filters out the chlorine. And a lot of different filters do that. It's harder to filter out things like fluoride. That's quite difficult to find, but many basic filters will filter out the chlorine. The other challenge is alcohol and coffee is a diuretic. And I've seen that really range from person to person, and studies show that as well. So diuretic means, essentially excreting water out of your body through urine, like excessive. So I've seen that being very, very different. Now I'll move down to the tips around hydration. So we spoke about potentially carrying a water bottle. Some people talk to me about taste. So you can put like a slice of cucumber or mint or squeeze of lemon in there. We spoke about filtered water. And the last thing is around checking if you're dehydrated. So the way to do that is you can check your urine color. There's actually loads of different ways you can do it, but we'll just go with urine color. I think that's the best one. And ideally, it will be anywhere between clear to kind of pale yellow, kind of bouncing around there. Now, if it smells, that can be an indication of toxicity or dehydration. So that's something you can look out for as well. So that's around hydration. I think water is more or less the best thing to hydrate with, but open to any suggestions or any other comments around this particular section. So has anyone got anything? Oh.
Yeah, sorry. So in terms of adding things like salt or lemon or anything into the water, like, would you recommend that?
Absolutely love adding salt to water. So especially a high quality salt like Celtic sea salt or Himalayan rock salt, loaded with minerals. And I've actually got a little mineral tester here at my place. And when water's filtered, some of the minerals get filtered out. So you can put a little pinch of salt in there, just remineralizes everything. So a high quality salt will have 60 to 80 different minerals, loaded with electrolytes, and can really help with water retention and circulation. So love the pinch of salt in water, just a little pinch. It's lower in, high quality salt is lower in sodium, which is the link, that's what people are concerned around, increasing blood pressure. So, but higher quality salt is a lot lower in sodium. So love that. With regards to lemon, lemon's really high in vitamin C and high enzymes. So if you've got low enzymes, you can drink lemon water. That should help you eat food a little bit better. The only thing is you just got to monitor that a little bit, because it can stimulate your digestive system and you don't really get that break between meals. So ideally, you'd kind of just do that intermittently. And the ideal would actually even be, leading into a meal, because it's loaded in enzymes, which helps you break down and digest some of that food. So a very cheap test you can do of whether you're enzyme deficient is you can have some lemon water. If your digestion's better, then it's like, oh, wow, I need more enzymes. And enzymes in a lot of different fresh foods. They're in lemons, for example. They're in aloe vera. You can get them in loads of different ways.
Oops, Sabina's just texted in also. With the 3 liters of water a day, that's not too much for the kidneys to cope with. Did you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So the 3 liters is an example of 100 kilograms, 100 kilogram person. So I'll just go back to that slide. I'll just go back to that slide if I can. Yeah, so that's for 100 kilogram person. So for that kind of size person, it should be fine. Everyone has a different size bladder. So that's a little bit tricky. Some people have a bigger bladder than others. And some people have what I would call a nervous bladder, where, where they're a lot of fear or stress pumping through the system and they need to go to the bathroom more often. So at that weight, it should be fine for the kidneys. I've recommended this formula, I don't know how many times, maybe hundreds. And it hasn't really shown to stress the kidneys at all. But yeah, just doing it in line with your body weight.
Yeah. So for example, Sabina, if you're 60 kilos, that would be around 2 liters a day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Good questions. Okay. We're going to go into nutrition and just some of the benefits around that. So, so about 70% of our immune system is housed in our gut. And that's, I think, not a mistake from nature, because we're eating all this food and this is like foreign stuff coming into our body. So our immune system is there to really react and process it properly. Okay. So really important to have good gut health. And I just put down 2 key foods here, which are excellent for gut health. One of which is fermented foods, which are really high in beneficial bacteria. And I would recommend organic fermented foods if you can, because they're kind of sitting in brine or salted water for a long period of time. Ideally, you'd like to get organic, and they're actually pretty available now. I've even seen them at IGAs here in Brisbane. So fermented foods would be like a sauerkraut or a kimchi. I personally love my fermented olives. Kombucha in a reasonable amount of moderation can be really good. Apple cider vinegar, which is not everyone's cup of tea, but it is a fermented food. So that's excellent to replenish the gut with good bacteria. At the same time, bone broth is excellent for just sealing up and healing the gut really, really well. There's an excellent brand here in Brisbane, and also I've got an online client in Canberra at the moment, so she said it's there, called Best of the Bone. And Best of the Bone is like a concentrate, so you can use like concentrates, which is a bit easier than making it. I found anyway. So that's some things around healing the gut. Then you've got I just thought I'd sort of throw down 2 vitamins here, which are really important for the immune system. So vitamin C, predominantly in plant-based foods, also found in the liver. And the highest foods of vitamin C are kiwis, capsicums, oranges, and strawberries. So, vitamin C helps the production of white blood cells, which actually helps, react to certain foreign invaders in our body. So it directly impacts the immune system really, really well. Also been shown to promote different wound healing as well. At the same time, vitamin D is excellent. Can be a little bit harder to get for some people. So the doctors will normally check vitamin D on your regular bloods. But it is in foods as well. So mainly fish eggs, liver, seafood, especially prawns. And sunlight is excellent for vitamin D. So that's a regular on bloods, and it's worth trying to keep that in the range. I personally think it's worth doing it with food and sunlight, but there are some good supplements out there as well.
So just on that sunlight thing, because obviously with lockdowns, particularly those who are in cities, in apartments, like I know that sunlight can also contribute to things like depression. So it's really, really important to just try and get out into the sun. How many minutes a day would you recommend at minimum to have that kind of sun exposure?
Yeah, everyone's actually got a really different tolerance, and it actually depends on their skin tone. So, for example, I've got a friend who is, really, really white. He barely needs any sun, and he can get his vitamin D levels in the range, no problem. And then someone like me, I've got to get a bit more sun, and then someone with darker skin, more sun still. So it actually is a very individual thing. Yeah. So it depends on the amount of what they call melanin in your skin.
I was just going to say, Mark, too, I'd heard that you absorb vitamin D mostly through your abdomen. Is that correct?
I wasn't aware of that, actually, to be honest with you. I actually, you know what? I have heard that once, but I'd never looked into it. So I've now heard it again. So it's worth looking into.
Do you think that was a line through bikini sellers to get people in bikinis?
Maybe.
Sorry, I'm a marketer. No, I'm not saying it's not true. It's just
Yeah, no, that's the second time I heard that. I haven't actually looked into it though, so there may be merit to it, and it kind of, there may be merit to it. If a lot of the food you're eating and it's got vitamin D, it's in your gut, and then the sun goes in your gut. Yeah, there may be merit to it. I have to look into it.
Sorry, one thing, Mark. Ren's just messaged in. So is having darker skin, does it prevent vitamin D absorption? I have very low levels, tan very easily, and usually get quite tanned.
Yeah, okay, cool. So What I've seen is it can affect vitamin D levels. So if you're not getting the sun exposure that you need personally, and then it can also be a nutritional thing. And you also need to have the appropriate amount of calcium as well. So vitamin D is highly dependent on calcium. And you can get calcium a number of different ways, including bone broth. The best sources of calcium would be things like sardines that have got bones in them. Really good source of calcium. Other ones are bok choy, almonds, maybe tuna, those kind of things. So vitamin D absorption, you've got to really check your calcium levels as well if that's being thrown off. So yeah, like I said, everyone's got a different tolerance. Darker skinned people will probably need more sunlight. And at the same time, you kind of need a right nutritional balance, especially with the calcium and vitamin D. So hopefully that answers that question, and feel free to punch through another one if you need to. Okay, cool. Now on nutrition, recommendations, it's a pretty big topic, so I'm going to keep it fairly high level. But essentially, I personally think everyone's quite individual, and there's a number of things that influence that. So it can depend on genetics, it can depend on activity levels, it can depend on stress levels, all those kind of things. So it's really around trying to eat a combination of carbs, protein, and fat that really suit your body type. And what indicators are there for that? Now, I'm going to dive into some points in the next slide, but I'll just mention them now. What indicators, what are some indicators that you're on the right track? Well, ideally, you'll have good energy for about at least 3 hours, unless you've purposely had a shortened meal. You'll have good concentration. You won't be really hungry. You'll feel pretty satisfied. That is the best indication that what you're eating in terms of the carbs, the protein, and the fat are the best. That's the best macronutrient mix for your individual type. And everyone's very, very different. So just really getting in touch with your individual needs. If you do that, that will help you manage blood sugar levels. So we spoke, that's the second dot point. We also spoke about that in the sleep section. Because if the blood sugar levels are pumping around everywhere, they're going absolute crazy, that can release a lot of different stress hormones. That's telling your body that, you're under a high amount of stress. So just getting individual with nutrition is really, really important. Will reduce stress hormones and as a result, support the immune system. I personally recommend 5 main food groups. I'm happy to be challenged on other ones. So I recommend vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, legumes, and animal foods. That's actually 6. So those 6 are really, really good. I don't think you can go wrong with that. If you've got some really bad gut issues, you can always start on animal foods and vegetables and then move out from there. Many times people have had bad gut issues. I've said, hey, look, let's start on this, animal foods, vegetables, and then slowly start introducing some things like fruits and nuts and stuff like that. So that can be a point to start.
Quick question, Mark.
Yeah, sure. I love these questions. Awesome.
I feel like meat really slows down my digestion, and I found as I get older, I'm opting for less and less meat. Is that an issue perhaps with digestive enzymes, maybe not enough hydration, things like that? We were vegan for about a year and felt amazing on it, but we were sort of recommended to incorporate some meat. So I have been doing the bone broths and things like that, but yeah, still find that my body just thrives on really high plant food intake. Seems to slow right down on meat. Yeah,
so it's one of two things. You're either better suited to plants, or you're low on something called hydrochloric acid / enzymes. They kind of work together. So you're low on one of those two, or you're suited to plants. So how can you test that? Well, you can do lab tests on that. I do lab tests. The other thing you can do is you can even just try hydrochloric acid, which is actually normally just beetroot extract. So you can get some good quality one. I can forward you a link for one if you like.
Yeah.
So drinking some lemon water before you have any animal food. And then it's like, cool, if you're digesting that better, then you might be lower on enzymes. Now, enzymes are essentially facilitators in nature. They will help you facilitate things. So there's enzymes in the food, there's enzymes in the gut, and they kind of work together. Now, if you're low on enzymes in the gut, it's hard to work together. So you might want to try, maybe about 15 minutes before a meal, you might want to try lemon water, see if that helps with the animal food. Or the other one is you can try a hydrochloric acid, or you can try a little shot of apple cider vinegar, which is, that doesn't make me any friends when I say that. But I've been having apple cider vinegar for years. I've personally gotten used to it, but some people just have not. So everyone's a bit different. But that's probably the main things going on. So hopefully that helps.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Okay. So the challenges. So food sensitivities. Now, I've seen studies to show that people above infancy, there's about 70% of the population that are sensitive to lactose. And so when you're sensitive to foods, that can flare up your immune system. So if the classics that we kind of hear about are gluten and dairy. So if you are sensitive to those, it will cause inflammation and really flare up the immune system. Many times I've worked with people, we've taken out food sensitivities and their mucus has cleared up. Their sensitivity to certain seasons, especially spring, has cleared up. So I've found that to be really beneficial. I thought I'd throw a couple of other ones in here. So unhealthy food addictions. The main one probably being sugar. So sugar is highly addictive. And I empathize with people that have food addictions. So sugar is highly addictive, but it's also been shown to suppress the immune system for a few hours. So ideally, you really want to manage that processed sugar intake. The other two, especially now, would probably be emotional eating. And I've actually seen stats it was only 2 days ago, I think, or maybe even yesterday. There was an article that showed that ice cream consumption has gone up by something like 21% in the last 2 years. And so is potato chips. So, junk food intake has escalated in the last 2 years. And I'm sure the pandemic's had a fair bit to do with that. So around the emotional eating component, that can really drive people's nutrition choices. Then the last one there's a challenge I've got is self-sabotage. So that happens a lot. So, an example of self-sabotage would be, let's just say, you're running a pretty significant thought pattern of I'm not worthy and you're struggling to manage that. All of a sudden you might go and eat some food and go, okay, cool. Now I feel better because the food has helped me release something called dopamine. So I feel better. That's reward. Excellent. And it's also justified your I'm not worthy as well, because you haven't actually kind of treated yourself well. So you've actually justified your I'm not worthy. So when you're in a bad thought pattern, you eat to make yourself feel better, and you also eat to justify how you're feeling underneath. And hopefully I've explained that well enough, because it can be a little bit complicated. So why I went a bit more mental emotional with the nutrition challenges is because what I find is most people kind of know what to do, but it's really hard to implement. So that's why I thought I'd touch on that. And those three, even though all 4 points are really, really common, are the most common challenges I see anyway. I kind of touched on the tips to improve nutrition in the previous slide. So around, eating the right proportion of carbohydrates, protein, fat for your particular body type. And, having good energy for 3 hours or good concentration, good moods, that's the best indicator you've got that right. And you also might want to consider addressing the mental emotional blocks if you sort of go on these really bad eating tangents. So to do that, I think it's ideal to engage with a professional, or you can even just the awareness of that can really, really help. So we've had that section, had a couple of questions. Anyone else got any further questions on that?
Just sort of something further to that, and sorry if you bring this up later, but just around food and sleep. Alcohol at night is a major contributor to not sleeping well. Like, I know so many people who are in stressful environments and at work, and they use alcohol to calm down at the end of the day. Just before bed, they'll have a couple of glasses of wine and things like that. What's your opinion on that sort of approach, and is it actually working to get that quality of sleep?
Yeah, so alcohol, it works with people two different ways. So some people, it can have a bit of a knockout effect, and they can get a good night's sleep. But the studies have shown that they miss out on really deep repair. When they've actually assessed brainwaves, they've gone, oh, wow, like your REM, like certain brainwaves, like REM, like rapid eye movement. So you're really, really deep sleep, and even a really light sleep, like that's actually been quite compromised on alcohol and marijuana, actually, is what I've seen in research. So despite the fact people might get a good night's sleep as a result, they may not be getting adequate rest and repair. Now, to your question around, well, can it throw off sleep? Well, yes, it can, because especially probably wine, really, because that can throw around your blood sugar levels, like I mentioned. So you can get like quite a spike and then quite a crash. So the wine can really throw around your blood sugar levels. It's hard to get a good night's sleep. Also, your liver is actually processing overtime. And according to Chinese medicine, your liver does a lot of detoxifying between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. And if you're adding extra stress, you can actually wake up. And that can happen a lot. So, yeah, it's not something that, I recommend. I have I'd say a very strict lifestyle, but I actually still have maybe 1 or 2 drinks a week. So I don't, live in a cave with monks and come out to my computer every now and then. So, there's still, we're not looking for perfection here, but it can throw off sleep. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. Okay. So next one, I probably won't focus too much on, but happy to take questions, because I don't want to cross with Marie, and I'm conscious of time as well. Marie was the lecture last week on breath. So, a lot of our detoxification happens through our breath. That's the main point I want to bring up here. So 70% goes through our breath, 10% through our skin, 20% through our skin, about 10% through our urine and feces. Given time, I might actually just skip through this because I'd like to sort of stick with that. So we've got breath, and because Marie spoke about it last week, I didn't really want to cross over with what she said. So breath's important for detoxification, and in summary, it can be jeopardized by high stress and high anxiety. Can be stressed by poor nutrition. So a high sugar diet can put someone into high stress. So it can compromise their breath, and just suboptimal posture can also compromise it a little bit. But being conscious of time, I might just skip through that, and we'll move on to movement. Okay. So when you're exercising, it helps pump fluid through the body, which assists with waste removal. So it helps pump like water and blood and oxygen. The lymphatic system, which is integral in our immune system, helps really get that flowing. So it really helps the immune system in that way. As a result, there's a lot less infections reported as a result of exercise, and studies have shown that. So where people regularly exercise, they generally are less prone to things like flus and colds and so forth. The other thing is when you're exercising, it helps reduce stress hormones. And stress hormones have been shown to suppress the immune system. So what's an adequate level of movement? Well, the official guideline from the CDC in America is 150 minutes per week of moderate. So moderate would be walking, yoga, that kind of stuff. So that would be 5 times a week, 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. I would say that's the minimum. So, 30 minutes a day of walking is around about 3,000 steps. The average Australian averages about 4,500. So you'd really want to bump that up. I'd say even, a few days there of 10,000 steps. But it kind of depends on your goals as well. But as that first up point, I would say that's your absolute minimum. Everyone is different. I've got a seesaw for managing movement because everyone's different. Everyone's got a different tolerance level. And it really depends on your levels of vitality. So if your nutrition is good and your sleep is good and water's good, stress is good, you can normally handle a lot more exercise. If those kind of things are out of whack, if you're, really high stress and you've got like a 2-year-old or 1-year-old that's constantly waking you up, you just got to really manage that exercise and be like, hey, look, okay, maybe it's just a gentle walk today and I don't go and do CrossFit, for example. So it's very much a management exercise on when you're managing your movement. Okay. So what are the challenges around that? Well, the current restrictions in certain states at the moment, and we've all had it in some way capacity, and we're not through it yet. You can go through your motivation, so exploring your why. So really getting down to your why. So I find people just get really unmotivated. That's like the thing they can just throw in the bin really easily. So really exploring your why. So why are you doing this? And it's often around, what I find for parents, they often around, I want to be healthy for my kids. I want to be around for my kids is one of the key motivations I see. Now, how to improve movement? Well, accountability is really good. So, if you're joining a team or if you have a walking partner, a bike riding partner, that is excellent to maintain regular movement. And then the final point is just doing what you enjoy. Like, I really think gym work is excellent, but not everyone likes that. So you actually just do what you enjoy because you're going to do that regularly and you're going to be feeling good and feeling happy. So any questions or input on this section?
I think further to that is, we don't have to go to a gym or to a class or pay for things. I just do online YouTube classes for Pilates and yoga and like 20, 30, 40 minutes, and I haven't left my apartment, and then I might go for a walk on the beach. So you don't have to pay for expensive gym memberships if that's not in your scope either. There's lots of free resources. Yeah,
good point. Really good point. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll move on to the last section here. So around thoughts. Okay, so thoughts are exceptionally powerful and really flying around everywhere at the moment when it comes to managing your immune system. So I just thought we brought in some key points here. So placebo medication has been shown to be highly effective. There was a study done in 2014 with headaches and migraines, and when they gave a placebo to people with headaches, and then they gave the real thing to people with headaches, there was a 50% improvement in the people that took placebos. So that's how massive it can be when you're like, oh, I'm taking this pill to make me feel better. And then you just feel better like 50% of the time, right? So placebos are highly, highly effective. There's been research to show that, a level of optimism can help improve your immune system. And there's also evidence of people having kind of miraculous healing. And I'm sure you've kind of heard of these things where they happen every now and then. I would say that I've probably witnessed it a few times as well. Okay, so recommendations. In an age where we're, absolute dense with information, it's really managing that information. Just lately, I've kind of, not engaged with the media or social media as much, nearly as much as I used to. I'm feeling a lot better for it, quite frankly. So just really managing that information. Surrounding yourself with the right people can be really, really important because you can really take on people's energy. And I call people that draw your energy, I personally call them energy vampires. They're almost like sucking the life out of you, like sucking your life force out of you. So you really want to manage the people you have around you. Then the other one would be practicing self-love. So what does that look like? Yeah, sure, you can do self-talk, but the other things that are really good is just treating yourself really well. Whether that's a good meal, whether that's implementing some of these principles we've discussed today, whether that's going for a foot massage or giving yourself a foot massage, whatever it might be, just doing what you enjoy. That is really giving yourself a sense of self-love. So the challenges around this is thoughts can impair our immune system, or stress can. And that's really been shown in a number of different studies. Some people are naturally negative, which is fine. Negative people can actually be quite good at finding problems or resolving problems. They can really find the holes in what's going on. They can really find the solutions to certain problems. But it's still ideal to have a sense of optimism. Like, okay, great. These are the holes I've found, and how do we work with this? And the other challenge would be that anger, fear, and hate levels are quite high at the moment. If used correctly, anger, fear, and hate can actually be very, very powerful. And what I've found with some people is that a lot of these emotional states can just be emotions they have it themselves. So, for example, I wasn't too happy. I'd say I was angry at the fact that we had such a unique time during a pandemic to really promote health and lifestyle factors, where we could really have a shift in people's health. I thought it would be an excellent opportunity for that. I haven't really seen that, and I was getting quite angry. So, I didn't have any social media presence up until only maybe 6 to 12, maybe 9 months ago. So I was like, stuff this. So I'm going to do something about it. So that level of anger kind of actually helped me implement certain things. So I've been coaching for more than 5 years, but now I'm actually doing social media, and I'm currently doing, these immune system kind of talks as well. So where there's these kind of anger and fear and hate levels are kind of high, you can actually use that to your advantage as well, is the point I'm trying to drive across. So what can you do? So you can have a regular stress management practice. This is excellent if it's fairly regular, because you can call upon it in the good times and the bad times, and it's kind of always there. So what does that look like? It's a bit different for everyone. You can do journal writing, you can do meditation, Tai Chi, or just going for a walk. Talking it out with a friend, seeking support can be excellent. Self-development books and courses people really enjoy, or you can employ a third party for that additional support. So does anyone have any input on that? It's a pretty sensitive topic at the moment.
I think the thoughts and emotions together are so powerful. I mean, emotions are literally energy in motion. And I think as a culture, Australians are very reluctant to embrace their emotions, and they sort of shy away or try and suppress or push under the rug any kind of stuff that comes up. But I think if we can become more conscious of our thoughts and emotions, like Marie, you were talking last week, use those emotions and those thoughts as this radar to be able to check in and go, oh, hold on, why am I feeling like this? What thoughts are there? What emotions are there? What's the underlying? No worries, Sabina. Thank you for coming on. She's just saying she's jumping off. Where is this coming from? And when you start exploring, I guess, the root cause of these thoughts and emotions, I guess you go into the root cause and really unlocking a lot of power and healing and the ability to grow through that. And you were talking gently earlier on subconscious patterns, Mark, and being able to recognize where those subconscious patterns come from. I'm a naturally very negative person. I know that, but that's my superpower, because I've implemented it in my business to find where there might be a problem for a person in their business, and I navigate and create a solution based on that ability to be negative. So I've recognized my, natural subconscious pattern, and then I've used it to actually create money from. So I think just get curious whenever thoughts and emotions come up. Ask yourself, where are these coming from? Where do they stem? Go to the source rather than trying to look for quick fixes and try and suppress them. That was my little addition.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Now, any other questions or any takeaways that anyone would like to share?
Ren's just said she's never heard the term naturally negative before, but it makes sense. Yeah, it's
Okay,
just,
cool.
yeah, we're just talking about, I guess, people's predisposition, certain personality traits, and it might be generational. I know my family are probably very negative naturally. It's maybe where I got it from, but I just use it very differently to the way they use it.
Yeah, perfect. And did you want to share something, Marie?
I was just going to give compliments to the presentation, actually, because it's really beautiful to see that circadian rhythm being enhanced in your work. And I love how you've identified that every individual, I suppose, has their own landscape of what serves them and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. And I really love how you've identified those powerful, I suppose, reflexes or tendencies of thought that manipulate, I suppose, certain outcomes. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Appreciate it. Thanks for your input.
I'm going to say, Mark, quickly, there's 6 major areas here, and it's all about balance, really, isn't it? And what are your main, is it 6? Yeah. What are your main tips for maintaining balance in all of this? Because any one of these we can get over the top with exercise, you can get over the top with nutrition and diet. It's really about just keeping a good balance between all of them.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a refinement process. I taught this just then in an hour, but some of these things took me a while to implement. So it is actually a refinement process. It's not actually, all right, I've got to change everything right now. I would pick 1 or 2 things to implement, almost solidify that, and then you kind of work forward from there. So, and then there's some things where, I've gone too far and I've pulled back on. So as an example, I read some, pretty reliable research that food stays in our digestive system for around about 56 to 72 hours. So I was like, cool, I'm going to do a rotation diet. So if I have chicken on Monday, I'm not going to touch it till Thursday, right? And that was just an absolute pain. So I pulled back on that. So it's kind of like, it's just a refinement process. And like I said, sometimes it gets a bit too strict and then you're like, cool, I've just got to pull back. The other one, the classic example, I'm on almost an all organic food diet, all those kind of things. But I love to keep social. So that's why I have maybe 1 or 2 drinks a week on a weekend somewhere. And that's probably my only vice, but I'm okay with that. So hopefully
that's your only
vice,
is it, Mark?
I think so.
You're so humble.
I don't really know. But yeah, so no one's, I would say it's almost unhealthy to want to solidify every single one of these points and live them to perfection. It's a refinement process and there's always a little bit of room to move.
I think, going back to basics and listening to your body, the calmer you are, the more you're able to actually listen to your body's feedback. So if you're having a craving for good food, like if you're craving chicken or if you're craving a particular type of fruit that's completely random, I just listen to that. Sometimes I just feel not to take any supplements. Sometimes I'm very much drawn to a particular supplement. And that might vary day to day or week to week or month to month. I think if we remember that we are a natural organism living in a bigger natural organism, and nature has this innate ability to return to homeostasis. So that homeostasis is about finding or rebalancing naturally. And nature is so wonderful at doing that, from the animals and insects to the fungus to, natural disasters. Nature knows how to rebalance and recalibrate. And within us, we have that exact mechanism. But I think in a modern society and modern culture, we've forgotten how to tune into that type of homeostasis and that natural power. So if we come back to those roots and those simplified ways of living and eating and breathing and all of those things, we become more in tune, we become more aware, and we just improve. So it's not about getting everything right straight away. It's about improving it. Practice, and going easy on yourself and enjoying it. As Mark says, enjoy a beer every now and then. It's nothing wrong with that. I'm going out tonight to an awards night. I'm going to have champagne. I can't wait. Might be thinking differently tomorrow morning, but it's not something that I do regularly. So I'm usually in bed by 8 o'clock every night too. So were there any other questions or points, Mark, that you wanted to make before we wrap this up?
No, I appreciate there's a couple of people dropped off, and then Andrew and Simone don't currently have the screen. I was just going to suggest that, if anyone to follow me on the socials, I've got a Facebook page and an Insta, which I kind of just started, like I said, a few months ago. Do one-on-one coaching, do public speaking. And then also we're going to do a Q&A tomorrow, I believe. Letitia, is that right? At 12:30. And then we have The Power of Emotions Week 3 with Dr. Morgan Webber, same time next week.
Yeah, cool. And we found the Q&A is a great opportunity for people to really share their experiences and ask some more personalized questions. So tonight, maybe you might want to approach some of these practices and suggestions, or just observe some of those challenges and thoughts or emotions that come up for you, and we can unpack them more tomorrow. And our Q&A last week actually went for closer to an hour. So lots and lots of questions there. Ren's just asked if this presentation will be available later as she missed the start. Yes, it will be. So if you jump onto and register at wholegrow.me, those links have been in all the emails. Jump on and register in the portal. I also provided the direct link that will get you in the portal to this course. And then each week will be uploaded pretty much straight after, or within the first few hours of the live session, and you'll be able to rewatch the video. And if there's presentations or worksheets, be able to download those as well. So, all right. Well, no worries, Ren. Well, thank you everybody for joining. And thank you to Mark, of course, for sharing your wisdom and knowledge around this. And I learned heaps through that and was given a gentle reminder on certain things. So thank you so much for all of that. Look forward to seeing you and everyone else tomorrow as well. And of course, week 3 next week. So yeah, thanks everybody, and talk to you very soon.
Thanks guys, appreciate it.
See you, Mary.
Thanks for coming.
Bye, Dana.
Thank you very much. Thank you.